Chris Hemsworth really made an impression as a young Optimus Prime in Transformers 1, bringing something fresh and powerful to the character. But now, there's talk he might be making the jump to live action in Transformers 8, which has fans buzzing. The twist is, it doesn't look like he'll actually be voicing Optimus Prime in this new film, even though some people might have assumed he'd carry over the animated role. The next movie is shaping up to be a major crossover between Transformers and G.I. Joe, so it's looking more likely that Hemsworth will be showing up as someone completely different, possibly a new face from the G.I. Joe side of things. Before Transformers 1 even hit theaters, Hemsworth dropped a little hint himself that he'd be switching sides when it came to the live-action world. And let's be honest, if anyone's got the action hero chops to pull off a G.I. Joe character, it's Chris Hemsworth. His role in the Extraction movies pretty much proves he's built for that kind of gritty, high-stakes action. Still, it would feel a bit strange to have the guy who just voiced Optimus Prime suddenly battling against him in the next film. It's one of those situations where it's cool either way, but also just a bit awkward. Even so, whether Hemsworth plays a Joe or something entirely unexpected, a lot of fans are hoping Transformers 1 won't be the last time we hear his version of Optimus. That brings us to a bit of a bittersweet thought. If Chris Hemsworth ends up joining the live-action crossover in Transformers 8, but Transformers 1 doesn't get a sequel, we could be missing out on more of his version of Optimus Prime. And that would be kind of a shame. Hemsworth absolutely nailed it in Transformers 1, which told the origin story of Optimus and Megatron back when they were just Orion Pax and D-16, before the big war tore them apart. The film did really well too, getting a solid 89% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a near-perfect 98% from audiences. That kind of response usually means more movies, right? But so far, there's no official word on a follow-up. So if we go into Transformers 8 with no Transformers 1 sequel on the horizon, that question, what's next for Hemsworth's Optimus, is going to be on a lot of people's minds. It would be awesome to see Hemsworth dive into a new role in the G.I. Joe world, but it still feels a little incomplete if that's the last we hear from his version of Optimus. After all, Transformers 1 left a lot of the story on the table. What made Transformers 1 so unique was how it explored a younger Optimus and Megatron. We got to see how much both characters changed, from idealistic young bots to the legendary figures we know today. There's a lot of emotional weight in that transformation, and the ending of the movie clearly left the door open for more. Orion Pax's journey to becoming Optimus Prime was just beginning, and D-16's dark path toward Megatron was far from over. So it really feels like a sequel could build on that emotional complexity and give us even deeper insight into how these two went from brothers in arms to bitter enemies. Plus, if they were to make a sequel, there's a real opportunity to redeem some characters who didn't get their due in the live-action series. The Transformers universe is full of Autobots and Decepticons who were sidelined or underdeveloped in previous movies, and animation gives those characters a second chance to shine. So there's a bunch of good reasons for Transformers 1 to continue, whether it's story potential, character arcs, or just giving fans more of what they clearly loved. And that brings up another point. The Transformers franchise doesn't need to choose between live action and animation. It can do both, and do them well. The animated series are a huge reason the franchise has lasted this long, and Transformers 1 proved there's still a big audience for that format. When you look at the box office, it's true that the live-action movies made a ton of money, but the animated films haven't really had as much of a chance to shine. Transformers 1 might not have hit the billion-dollar mark, but it did build serious goodwill with fans, and that counts for something. So with Transformers 8 and 9 already confirmed, and kicking off a brand new trilogy that started with Rise of the Beasts, it's the perfect time to balance both formats, especially because the end of Rise of the Beasts sets up some pretty major changes. The Autobots now seem to be calling Earth their home, but that peaceful moment didn't last long. The movie teased bigger threats looming in space, including hints about other Transformers spread across the universe. That opens up a whole new frontier for future stories, literally. For a while, the idea that Transformers existed beyond Earth was more of a background detail than a real plot point, but Rise of the Beasts confirmed it in a big way. Not only are there more factions like the Maximals, but there are entire worlds out there we haven't seen. The movie even introduced Unicron, a giant planet-devouring force of destruction. Watching Unicron wipe out the Primal's homeworld was intense, and it made it clear that future films are going to get cosmic fast. That's why this next trilogy has so much potential. We're not just dealing with Optimus versus Megatron anymore. There are other groups and entire civilizations out there, some that might want to join the Autobots, and others that might side with the Decepticons, or even worse threats like Unicron. It would be a missed opportunity not to explore those other planets and dive deeper into the wider universe of the Transformers. And let's not forget the G.I. Joe connection, which is starting to really take shape. Historically, Transformers and G.I. Joe have crossed over in the comics a bunch of times, so seeing them come together on the big screen isn't totally out of left field. Sure, the two franchises have very different tones. One is about alien robots, the other about elite soldiers, but they both center around that good versus evil dynamic, so they complement each other nicely. At the end of Rise of the Beasts, we finally got a glimpse of that crossover happening for real. When Noah is offered a mysterious new job by Agent Burke, it turns out Burke is actually a part of the G.I. Joe organization. He takes Noah to a secret base filled with all kinds of high-tech gear and futuristic vehicles, hinting that the Joes are already preparing for battles that go way beyond Earth. That leads to another interesting point: space travel. The movie showed that jumping from planet to planet isn't easy. Even massive beings like Unicron need special tech to move across the galaxy. So for smaller Transformers, or humans for that matter, having a spaceship is crucial. If the Autobots manage to get their hands on that kind of tech, it would open up tons of new story possibilities. They could finally search for other surviving Transformers, uncover secrets from their homeworld, and maybe even stop whatever dark forces are coming next. And speaking of dark forces, one big group was noticeably missing from Rise of the Beasts: the Decepticons. Megatron and his crew didn't show up, but they're definitely still out there. It wouldn't be surprising if they're just biding their time before making a big return. And if they do, they could very well link up with Cobra, the G.I. Joe franchise's longtime enemy. Both groups are known for using manipulation and dirty tactics, so it wouldn't be a stretch to see them team up. That kind of team-up would raise the stakes big time. Imagine the Decepticons and Cobra joining forces to take down the Autobots and the G.I. Joes at the same time. That's not just a battle, it's a full-on war. And if Chris Hemsworth is thrown into that mix as a G.I. Joe character, it could get really interesting. But again, as exciting as that all sounds, there's still a part of us that hopes we're not done with Hemsworth's Optimus just yet. Transformers 1 gave us something different, something more emotional and character-driven, and it'd be a shame if that story stopped before it really got going. So while we're totally on board for space battles, crossovers, and new villains, here's hoping there's still room for animation and a deeper dive into the origins of Cybertron's greatest heroes. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.